Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show, and we can go least favorite to best pick of the week, and at the end of the episode, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so be sure in the comments below to let me know your pick of the week, because you might get featured on the episode. Now let's start talking about this week's books. I had a pretty average size haul with 11 books. So number 11 for me this week was Devil's Reign Omega issue 1. This was an anthology issue. I did not expect that. I thought it was just going to be, okay, what happens after Devil's Reign? This is the setup of what's going to happen in Daredevil. And that first story kind of was that. It was the aftermath of Daredevil's death. And some of the heroes knowing, some people not knowing. And then the rest of the stories had to do with a setup for Thunderbolts and then a Luke Cage story. And I wish the artwork was neater for the Luke Cage story because I know he was a focus on this arc. And I kind of wanted a little bit more from him in the overall event. So it was nice to see him, but I didn't love the artwork for his story. And I thought it was weird to have this Thunderbolts set up in this issue. And then the actual Daredevil story was just okay. Mostly because I didn't love Devil's Reign. I feel like some of the plot choices they made were weird. You know, how many times can Daredevil's identity be revealed and then he dies and fake his death? You know, we've seen it before with Daredevil, so I didn't quite love this story. So I think that's why I felt a little underwhelmed with this one shot as well, but then making it an anthology made it even more underwhelming. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, book I was looking forward to, and that's Fox and Hare issue 1. It just looked like it had a fun style. You know, I haven't seen a lot of superhero books from Vault, so I was like, oh, this looks different, looks kind of anime-ish. And I didn't get into the story as much. It opens up with these two people who lost their parents and kind of become family because of that, and then the rest is kind of superhero heist adventure and not as much about the characters, and it was harder to get into the story because of that. But I think a shining moment of this was honestly the art. I really love the art style. I think it really brought that anime feel. It was very bright as well, but the story didn't quite do it for me. So giving that 10 stars, and that is number 10. I said 10 stars. I'm giving that 2 stars, and that's number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Stillwater issue 13. And we are gearing up to the last part of this story. I feel like it's been a while as we've been gearing up to this. And I think something that really brought me to have this a little lower is honestly, it's also been a while since we had a actual Stillwater story. We had a couple of one-shots. There was definitely a longer hiatus for this. And then we finally get into the mix of things, and I feel like it was a little jarring. I was like, oh, wait, I kind of wish there was a little bit more build-up to this moment because it's been a while since we read this kind of main story from Stillwater. And we do set up to see another town, which I thought was interesting, but it was just a little too actiony and a lot being thrown at you while not really progressing the plot that much. It just felt like a lot of action being thrown at you. The artwork is always solid for this book, though, especially for something that's a bit more actiony. So overall, giving this 2 stars. It didn't quite do it for me, but hopefully as we get into more issues, then the build-up will be a little stronger. So giving that 2 stars, and like I said, that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is a book I've been trying to stick around with, and that is Hulk issue 7. I really like Thor, which is why I've kind of stuck around for the Banner War, but Hulk in general hasn't really been doing it for me. It's very more about the bombastic action than telling us a straightforward story. It's definitely been all over the place, and I know purposely it's been all over the place. It's just not my style of storytelling. And honestly, I thought the artwork is kind of flat here, you know, especially for some of these bigger moments. The coloring especially just kind of felt plain to me, where I think it could have been really brightened up to showcase some really interesting action pieces, especially in the end, where we get to see Thor become Hulk, which I thought was a cool moment. But it just felt like a parlor trick to me. I definitely want to see a little bit more story. I think the thing that does intrigue me with this arc is that they're both in kind of each other's heads, and that both stories have to do with this internal struggle, and I enjoyed that parallel. I just don't think they played with it in a fulfilling way for me personally. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7. This is a weird book. Okay, so number 7 is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. So the solicit said this is going to be finally the issue where Mary Jane and Peter talk things out, because last issue we had a big cliffhanger with Mary Jane having children and not being in a relationship with Peter. After we left things with Nick Spencer, they were happy. So, and even honestly the previous book as well, the Beyond stuff, we also left with them happy. So it was like, okay, why are they broken up? Who's Paul? And what's going on? And, you know, we have them on the cover. Literally, the solicit said it was going to be about them. And Mary Jane's not even in the issue. So obviously, behind the scenes, they must have, like, traded up the story very quickly. And also, we had a delay for this issue, too. So that's really what brings me to think, okay, we probably had a delay. And honestly, I think this could have been a little higher if I didn't have the expectations and still the cover of Mary Jane and Peter having a story, because honestly the rest of the story was fine. It was this big question mark of Norman and Peter teaming up during the 6 month hiatus or 6 month time jump. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. We get a little bit more of a setting of Tombstone and a little bit more of a grounded villain mob story going on. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then in the back of your head is like, this issue is supposed to be about Mary Jane and Peter, which would have been so much more interesting, which is why this is a little lower. Also, I will say John Romita Jr.'s art, because it was just Spider-Man in this issue, honestly, I thought was a bit stronger because of it. I think his Spider-Man and his superhero action is still not my taste, but I think is stronger than his bulky civilian stories. So overall, giving this 2.5 stars. I thought this was a weird issue, and hopefully we get that Mary Jane and Peter story at some point. So giving that number 7, I believe. Moving on to number 6, which is Deathstroke Inc., issue 9. This is the penultimate to the finale of Shadow War, which I think has been a pretty solid series, and I thought this was a solid issue, moving a lot of character parts and beats around where I'm really setting up to the idea of who killed Ra's al Ghul, but still getting to see a lot of characters like Ghostmaker and Clown Hunter facing Deathstroke. We get some good drama between Batman and Robin. It's also a little confusing when these come out back to back, because we also have Robin that we're going to talk about. So I kind of get a little confused, like, oh wait, did that happen in Robin or did that happen in Deathstroke? Because I do read them back to back as well when they come out in the same week. The reason this is a little lower though is the art. I'm not a huge fan of like the Howard Porter style. I don't even think Howard Porter did the art, but it's a very similar style. I'm just not a fan of that. But I thought the story moved pretty well for a penultimate issue to build to the big final moment. Speaking of, let's not detour. Number 5 was actually Robin, issue 14, which I thought the artwork was a lot stronger. We get the big reveals in this issue as well. But I actually thought some of the character moments were better in Deathstroke because it gave some time to breathe. This is more of the action issue. But I think they paired off really well. I think they gave enough for each. I just wish it was the same artist. There's definitely an interesting ending where we get to see Deathstroke die, it seems like. We'll see if he's actually dead. There is more Deathstroking to come, and I'm sure he's not actually dead, but how does he survive? Respawn does seem dead, which I don't know how to feel. And then the reveal, the very random reveal, but also interesting reveal, that Geoforce is the one who is behind all this. So it's a character we haven't seen in a while, and definitely a surprising character as well, where I'm like, oh, I want to see where this ends up going. So overall, I had a good time with this issue. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but we did get answers, and there's some shocking moments here, some good character drama with the Wayne family and the Deathstroke family, which is all you could really ask for Shadow War, which is really what they are selling. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. All right, moving on to number 4, a book I've been so pleasantly surprised with, and that is Punisher issue 3. And this is another great issue where we get to see, most of it is who did Punisher kill first and how that happened and why. We get a really good flashback as we're also building his initiation into the Hand and where his family's at, and his wife is not exactly all there, and how he's going to get his children back. So a lot of interesting moving parts while telling a big personal story and a good action story with how he killed somebody and why he killed somebody first, and just kind of get into the psyche of the Punisher with some extraordinary artwork from the present, which is one artist and another artist who does the past, who's the same artist who's done Outcast, and both are great in their own way and just really bleed so well to make one great cohesive story. So I've been really enjoying The Punisher. I never liked The Punisher, so if you want to jump in, I think this is a perfect series to do so, to become a fan of The Punisher. So overall, giving that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Saga, issue 59, and there's a weird cliffhanger here. But I thought the build-up was really interesting. The whole theme of this issue is that you can't trust your partner, and we get to see a little bit of what's going on behind Elena's, or Alana's, business partner, and how he stays behind, and you get some interesting character beats there. But in the end, we get to see that Squire is in love with Hazel, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? They're like kind of brother and sister too. They're not blood related, but they are family, and so I'm like, that's weird. So I have very conflicting feelings about the ending, but hopefully it's kind of more for just a shocker and we actually get to see more information in the next issue. But that was very interesting. And then honestly, I thought the big moment in this issue was between Alana and her business partner, and how the business partner said, hey, you're not a good mom, and just this really interesting conversation between the two, and you know, if she's a good mom or if she's not. And I thought that was really interesting, and really delving into the adventure side of this book as well. Is the adventure more important than her keeping her children safe? So that was a really heated, great conversation. I just thought it was a very consistent issue, even if I have very conflicting feelings about the ending. And obviously the artwork is always splendid when it comes to the emotions, to the action, and just this out-of-the-world visuals. So overall, giving that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, a book I really, really liked, and that is Rogue Sun, issue 4, and man, oh man, this mythology is getting so good and deep, and let's just say it all runs in the family. It's all about family business in this issue, where I feel like this issue did a really good job at let's just showcase regular superhero adventure, where the daughter of our main hero, the one who died, the father, she brought this element, this villain to life, and she's a little stronger than the characters our hero has gone up against up to this point. So we get that element of, okay, let's just see the superhero action, but then you get really deeper into the mythology of, you get to see the siblings and what their motives are, and, you know, still dealing with who actually killed dad. But then the big cliffhanger of finding out that our main character's mom is actually in the mix of this all as well. Is she a villain? Is she a hero? Who is a villain and who is a hero? And that's something I really like, is that I don't really know who the good side is, and they're all family, so it all, you know, there's a lot of personal conflict here as well, and I just love that everyone's involved. There's nobody who's just kind of this side character. They all have their own motives and are kind of part of this superhero or supervillain world, and the artwork is so good, and especially for that reveal, I thought the splash page was great. So it gets me even more excited for the rest of this world, and I couldn't expect that I could be more excited for this book, but I am, and I just thought it was a really solid setup to obviously something that's going to be even bigger. So giving that 4 stars, really, really great issue. If you're not reading Rogue Sun, definitely go check that out. Moving on to my pick of the week, which is a book I usually don't get, and as Avengers issue 56, I saw Valkyrie and Thor on the cover and found out there was a one-shot with them, and it's Jason Aaron, who obviously built up the Jane Foster Thor story, so I'm like, I gotta pick this up. And it was extremely new reader friendly, so I have not read Avengers in a long time, and I was able to jump in right away, and it was about Jane in this alternate universe where she is Thor's wife. And, you know, we think that, first of all, we find out Mephisto's behind it all. And, you know, we think, okay, the thing that she's attracted to is just being a wife and being loved by Thor. And that's what Mephisto is trying to trick her with. But actually, it's her want for becoming Thor again. And she gets the hammer in her hand, and that was the temptation. So we'll see how that actually affects the rest of the Avengers or Judgment Day, because that's what it's building up to. But yeah, no, I really like this story. It's just a one-shot. Just as a Jane fan, there's a lot of great beats of her time as Valkyrie, her time as Thor, and just like why she's such a great character. Building into, obviously, we're gonna have a movie soon, so I think it was just great timing to have this really great character-driven story, but also just fun alternate reality stuff going on as well. So I just thought it was just a really great one shot. If you're looking for a one and done, this is the way to do it. So overall, giving that 4.5 stars. If you're a Jane fan, definitely recommend that one. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what was your pick of the week. And at the end of the video, like I said, we'll have the viewers' pick of the week. And since last week I didn't have a video, I don't have the viewers' pick of the week for this week, but I will have it for next week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.